Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 28th of July. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast right here on ARIRANG TV. I'm Mark Broom, and let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Amid constant speculation one way or the other, South Korea's ambassador to Russia says the United States has not asked to deploy its THAAD missile defense system on South Korean soil. Sung-lac says Seoul will use its own system. Fighting has subsided somewhat in Gaza after Hamas said they backed a 24-hour humanitarian truce, but there's still no sign of any deal to end the near 3-week-long conflict. Plus, as China's housing market loses steam, Chinese investors are boosting their corporate mergers and acquisitions of Korean firms, particularly those in the gaming and other cutting-edge industries. But our top story this morning, there has been a lot of speculation one way or the other, but a high-ranking South Korean official says the U.S. has not officially requested to deploy its missile defense system in Korea. In an interview with Moscow-based news agency Interfax, South Korea's ambassador to Russia, Sung-lac, said that Korea will deploy its own indigenous missile defense system and that Washington has not asked to launch its own THAAD system on South Korean soil. This comes after Russia voiced concerns last week amid speculation the U.S. planned to deploy THAAD here in Korea. Russia's foreign ministry said at the time that such a step would inevitably have a negative impact on the strategic situation in the region and could provoke an arms race in Northeast Asia. Now, one of the main reasons South Korea wants a missile defense system is to counter the threat posed by its neighbor to the north. The North Korean military fired a short-range ballistic missile into the East Sea between Korea and Japan over the weekend, adding to its unusually high number of weapons tests this year. The North State media says the launch was a show of force, as Sunday marked the 61st anniversary of the signing of the armistice agreement, which ended the Korean War. Yulian reports.
Pyongyang fired another missile into waters off its east coast on Saturday, a little over a week after the UN Security Council officially condemned North Korea for its previous series of missile launches in recent weeks. North Korea state media said Sunday that its leader Kim Jong-un had guided a rocket-firing drill the day before to simulate a strike on military bases in South Korea, where over 28,000 U.S. troops are stationed. This confirmed reports from Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff Saturday night that said a short-range missile, presumably a Scud-type missile, was fired into the East Sea from North Korea's western coast, near the de facto sea border between the two Koreas. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency says the launch was timed to coincide with the July 27th anniversary of the ceasefire agreement signed at the end of the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. Although the armistice means that North and South Korea are still technically at war, North Korea hails the day as a major national holiday, praising late leader Kim Il-sung for his achievement in bringing the country a victory in the Korean War. The Nodongshinmun, the newspaper of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea, said in a front-page editorial on Sunday that the country should commemorate the victory by carrying out its military-first policy and strengthening its self-defense capability. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
Now, a ceremony to mark the 61st anniversary of the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement was held on Sunday at the Joint Security Area in Panmunjom, the border between the two Koreas. Scores of veterans and senior officials from South Korea and the U.S. attended a ceremony to honor the sacrifices of those who gave their lives in the conflict. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The Korean War started on June 25, 1950, when the communist government in the north launched a surprise invasion of South Korea. The war ended 3 years later on July 27, 1953, with a ceasefire and the signing of an armistice agreement that divided the country. Korea marked the day on Sunday with a ceremony honoring the sacrifices of the hundreds of thousands who died in the conflict. The event was held at the Joint Security Area in Panmunjom, the exact location where the armistice agreement was signed 61 years ago. General Curtis Scaparrotti, the commander of the United Nations Command, was in attendance, along with other senior officials and Korean War veterans.
By striving to maintain the armistice, we are honoring the sacrifice of the almost 180,000 men and women who died while fighting under the UN flag. And we acknowledge the estimated 2.5 million civilians who also died during the Korean War. When we take steps to maintain stability and security in the region, we display our desire to never again incur such a great cost.
In the wake of the recent provocative acts from North Korea, General Scaparrotti also had a strong message for Pyongyang.
Their continued opposition and defiance of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, as well as the international community norms, is unacceptable. And it further isolates them from the international community, further deprives their people of any hope of prosperity in the future.
This ceremony not only serves to mark the signing of the armistice agreement, but it's also a solemn reminder that the two Koreas are technically still at war. 김한빈, ARIRANG News, 판문점.
Now, fighting has subsided to a degree in Gaza after Hamas backed a 24-hour truce with Israel, but there's still no sign of a comprehensive deal to end this very bloody and near 3-week-long conflict. Hamas has said that it endorsed a call by the UN for a pause in the fighting in light of an upcoming Muslim holiday, which starts on this Monday. Now, some firing has been reported on both sides since Hamas agreed to lay down its weapons. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he doubts the validity of the truce, adding that Israel would take whatever action is necessary to protect the Israeli people. Over 1,000 Palestinians, including a great many women and children, have been killed in the 20-day conflict. 43 Israeli soldiers have died, along with 3 civilians killed by rocket and mortar fire out of Gaza. Now, a new report claims Hamas has bought rockets from North Korea in a secret deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Islamist group needs to replenish its depleted stockpiles after thousands of rockets were either fired at Israel or destroyed in Israeli airstrikes in recent weeks. Our Son Jung-in reports.
Thousands of rockets have been fired since the latest conflict between Israel and Hamas erupted on July 8th. And the Islamist group is reportedly keen to replenish its depleted stockpiles. According to the British daily The Telegraph, Hamas militants are attempting to negotiate a new arms deal with North Korea for missiles and communication equipment that will help them continue with their offensive against Israel. The Daily, quoting a senior security official, reported that the deal was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It added that Hamas is now waiting for delivery after it made an initial cash-down payment via a Lebanon-based trading company. The arms deal wouldn't be the first of its kind between the two. In 2009, a freighter carrying 35 tons of North Korean arms was seized in Bangkok, which was, according to Western sources, heading to clients such as Hezbollah and Hamas. Meanwhile, Israeli military commanders also believe North Korean experts have given Hamas advice on building their extensive tunnel networks in Gaza. They believe North Korea, which is believed to have one of the world's most sophisticated network of tunnels running beneath the demilitarized zone with South Korea, has helped Hamas improve their own tunnel network. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Now, we're at the height of the summer vacation season here in Korea, a time where millions of Koreans take a few days off to recharge their batteries. And President Park Geun-hye is also taking a week's vacation, although she'll be spending it at the presidential office of Cheongwadae. Officials say she will have a very quiet vacation, considering the country is still mourning the victims of April's ferry disaster, and 10 of the passengers to this day remain unaccounted for. The president is expected to continue working on ways to revitalize the economy and decide on who to nominate for the vacant culture minister post. And prosecutors are seeking arrest warrants for Yoo Dae-gyun, the eldest son of the owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, and his aide. Mr. Yoo was arrested last Friday with 34-year-old Park Soo-kyung, who allegedly helped him avoid being caught. Both had been on the police's wanted list since the deadly ferry sinking in April that left more than 300 dead or missing. Prosecutors are also questioning a woman who provided the studio apartment in Yongin, where Yoo and Park were holed up. They've also summoned Yoo's driver and another man who accompanied Yoo and Park when they first moved to the studio apartment in late April. Now, the Incheon prosecutor's office want to detain Yoo Dae-gyun for questioning on charges that he embezzled about $9.6 million from Chung Hae-jin Marine, the operator of the sunken ferry and its affiliates. Now, in some economic news, a recently unveiled government stimulus package will not have an immediate effect on the Korean economy. This, according to local analysts, who are saying that's the one big reason why they've lowered their third quarter earnings outlooks for Korean companies. The combined outlook for operating profits for the country's 177 listed firms fell by over 5% in the past month, this according to market researcher FN Guide. On Sunday, analysts had slashed estimates for about two-thirds of the listed companies. Hyundai Heavy Industries saw the biggest fall in its operating profit outlook by a staggering 53%. The outlook for Korea's third largest refiner, S-Oil Corporation, dropped by over 27%. Now, the Chinese mainland is overflowing with money that's seeking an investment haven, and with a slowing domestic real estate market where they used to put their money, Chinese firms flush with all this cash are going overseas company shopping. And Korea is absolutely no exception when it comes to China's aggressive M&A moves, as our Song Ji-son reports.
Chinese companies are busy buying up overseas companies with their huge cash reserves. According to Bloomberg on Monday, Chinese firms spent some $44 billion on global merger and acquisition deals this year, up nearly 40% from a year earlier. Chinese investors have traditionally invested in the domestic real estate market, but with profits eroding amid slowing growth, many are turning to foreign firms for higher gains. And Korea, a close neighbor and home to many advanced IT technologies, is one of the major go-to places for China's investors. Chinese corporate mergers and acquisitions of Korean firms have jumped 27-fold to $661 million this year compared to the same period last year. So what's behind the spike? Well, it's mainly because Asia's biggest internet company, China's Tencent, spent some $500 million buying a 28% share in Korea's CJ Games as it looks to bolster its lineup of online and mobile entertainment. China's IT giants like Tencent, along with Alibaba and Baidu, are fiercely investing in Korean game developers to acquire the skills to invent hit mobile games. On the other hand, Korean firms' investment in Chinese firms through M&A stands at a mere $20 million this year, 1/5 of the volume recorded last year. This is raising concerns Korean firms may lose their own shares while the Chinese aggressively acquire Korean stakes. Sung Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
Now, the number of smartphone users around the world is expected to reach 2.5 billion by the end of next year. According to US-based market researcher Strategy Analytics, about 35% of the global population of approximately 7.2 billion will use smartphones in the year 2015. That means more than 3 in every 10 people will be smartphone users. Industry watchers say the rapid increase in user numbers can be attributed to the expansion of markets in developing nations thanks to the release of lower-end smartphones. The market research firm said the number of global users had surpassed 1 billion all the way back in 2012. Now, the practice of crowdsourcing is catching on heavily in Korea, with more and more enterprises, big and small, soliciting contributions from a large group of people, and they're doing that both face-to-face and online. And the best thing about this crowdsourcing is that it's a win-win situation for both parties, as our Park Ji-won reports.
A lively debate is taking place over ways to better industrialize products. LG Electronics started operating a website 2 weeks ago where people can freely pitch their product ideas. If selected for production, the company has agreed to give the creator 4% of the total sales, while another 4% would be available to others who helped in the process of development. Over 8,000 submissions have already been made. Some include a helmet that runs on solar power and a refrigerator with transparent doors that lets people see what's inside.
These insightful ideas for home appliances come from the actual users of the products. We decided to turn these useful ideas into reality by providing ways to commercialize them.
This venture company gives 40% of a product's profits to the person who comes up with the idea. Its CEO believes strongly in the benefits of crowdsourcing.
Creation does not come from a single person. An idea comes to light when many people join forces. I think the true meaning of creation shines through cooperation.
Crowdsourcing goes beyond gathering new ideas and working together. It is proving to be a long, repeated process of collaboration, discussion, and modification that is rewarded with a unique product at the end. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Time now for a look through some of the other international headlines we're following on this Monday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Now let's begin with the conflict in Libya now. We're seeing a huge spike in violence there, the worst, in fact, since the toppling of Muammar Gaddafi.
That's right, Mark. The major cities of Benghazi and Tripoli seeing the brunt of that violence amongst rival militias and government forces. Weekend battles in the eastern city of Benghazi pitted militias against forces loyal to the Libyan government for control. Intense shelling continued into Sunday as the Libyan Health Ministry reported 38 people died and dozens others were hurt. The ministry also said nearly 100 people were killed in 1 week of fighting in the capital city of Tripoli, where a coalition of militias are trying to wrangle control of Libya's main airport from Zintan militias, who have maintained control since the 2011 revolution that toppled the Muammar Gaddafi government. And on Saturday, the U.S. evacuated its embassy in Tripoli by land to Tunisia as fighting raged at the airport. A joint statement issued by envoys of a string of countries, including the UK, France, Germany, the US, and the Arab League, said the situation in Libya is reaching a critical stage and called for a ceasefire from all sides. In an unscripted addition to his weekly address at St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis made an emotional plea for peace on Sunday. Ahead of the centenary of the start of World War I, he said his thoughts were particularly on crises unfolding in the Middle East, Iraq, and Ukraine. His voice appeared to crack as he made a direct appeal to stop the war, saying, "Brothers and sisters, never war, never war. I am thinking above all of children who are deprived of the hope of the worthwhile life, of a future." The pontiff's remarks came as a humanitarian truce broke down on Sunday in Gaza. Today marks 100 years since the outbreak of the First World War. The Nigerian Islamist militant group Boko Haram has kidnapped the wife of Cameroon's vice prime minister from her home in Kolofata. Vice Prime Minister Amadou Ali, who was also home celebrating the Muslim feast of Ramadan with his family, was scurried out to a neighboring town. At least 3 people were reported killed in what was described as a savage attack on Sunday. In a separate strike, the town's mayor, who is also a religious leader, was kidnapped from his home. Boko Haram has been stepping up its cross-border attacks in recent weeks as Cameroon joined international efforts to fight Boko Haram militants. Following meticulous planning and a $1.5 billion salvage operation so far, the Costa Concordia has arrived at its final destination, a port in the Italian city of Genoa, where it will be scrapped. Despite a storm, the 4-day journey from Julio, where it had run aground 2.5 years ago, was completed without major incident. The massive ship will be searched for the last remaining victim still missing, 33-year-old waiter Russell Rebello, before being demolished and scrapped, a process estimated to take 2 years. 32 people were confirmed killed in that shipwreck. The ship's captain is being tried for alleged manslaughter after abandoning ship with many passengers and crew still on board.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in the V-League as the 2014 Kobo Cup came to an end with two teams claiming the cup before the start of the new 2014-2015 season. Now, first off, over on the women's side, Hyundai Hillstate taking on GS Caltex. Hyundai Hillstate, led by Hwang Yeon-ju's 29 points, beats GS Caltex 3 sets to 1, 25-20, 22-25, 29-27, 25-23 to claim their first Kobo Cup title in 8 years. Meanwhile, now over on the men's side, the Korean Air Jumbos taking on Uricard. A bit of a lopsided win for the Korean Air Jumbos, this time led by Shin Young-soo and his 25 attack points, as Korean Air beats Uricard 3 sets to nothing to claim their third Kobo Cup title. And now moving over to Sunday's KBO action, the Kia Tigers crushed the Hanwha Eagles 17-5, with the Lotte Giants beating the LG Twins 4-3 in a close one, and the Nexon Heroes win one over the SK Wyverns 10-6. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Samsung Lions take on the NC Dinos. And of course, going over to the game here, second inning of the game. We go over where Lee Ji-young with an RBI single to center field scores Lee Seung-yup, and it's 1-0 Samsung. Now stays that way till the fifth inning of the game, where Eric Thames comes up with a clutch RBI double to right, and we're tied 1-1. And speaking of clutch, Navarro to the rescue with a 2-run double to left, and the Samsung Lions take the lead 3-1. Meanwhile, Im Chang-yo comes in for the save, and ball game over. Samsung wins this one 3-1. And now more from domestic baseball, this time with the Asian Games, as manager Ryu Jung-il of the Samsung Lions and the technical committee is set to reveal their 24-man roster later today at 2 p.m. And it won't be an easy decision, as the number of players in the league have been enjoying quite a season, including guys like Oh Jae-won, Na Ji-won, and Hwang Jae-gyun. But despite many of the players hoping for a chance to play on the national team for the first time and also a chance at being exempt from military service, manager Ryu Jung-il made it clear that he'll choose the team that will win them a gold medal. And now more baseball, this time over in the majors, as a number of legends in the sport were honored and inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame. And of course, with 6 legends being honored on the day, was highlighted by the induction of Greg Maddux, one of the most brilliant pitchers in the 90s, and his former teammate Tom Glavine, who's a part of that amazing Atlanta Braves pitching rotation in the 90s. Then, of course, there was Frank the Big Hurt Thomas, who hit over 500 home runs in 21 seasons in the majors, also joining amongst the elite. Now, 3 others to join the legendary managers in Bobby Cox, Joe Torre, and Tony La Rosa. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, today is Jungbok, the second day of the 3 hottest day of the year here in Korea. And to fit the term, it's going to be a scorching day today. Temperatures will be rising to low 30s across the nations. So heat wave advisory is in place for some regions, including Daegu. And it seems like temperatures will be rising to over 33 degrees Celsius in those areas. So while the rest will have to deal with scorching heat under lots of sunshine. So UV level is expected to be high in most regions, especially in the central part of the peninsula. So drink plenty of water and don't forget your sun protection items. But as we can see, Jeju will have a moderate UV index because monsoon rain has been sweeping the Jeju Island from early this morning, and the showers are expected between 5 to 40 millimeters, and it's likely to continue till the evening hours. So please keep that in mind. And let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in the capital will rise to 32, while Daegu will climb to 33, and Gwangju and Busan will have daily highs of 30 and 29 respectively. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju and Daejeon will top out at 28 and 32. Dokdo should see highs of 26. Well, that's all for me at this hour, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon, and enjoy the rest of your day as well. And that's all we have for now. We'll be back for our next newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.